Hey guys, hope you are well. Welcome to sunny Turkey. Welcome to my hotel room. A bit messy over there, so just ignore it. I promised myself that even though I'm away, I will get these videos done. So, need to remember the camera's there. That's very new. I'm on my phone, so yeah. Now, these are the power rankings for Super League round 13. I want to let you guys know right off the bat, camera's there, focus. There will be no changes to the order from last week. The first time this happened was round 2, I think. So, yeah, and I've kind of spoiled it. So the change is 0 to this entire list. There are 0 changes to this list, but we can at least dive into each team. There'll be a lot less cuts in this one, but we'll crack on with 12th place. So 12th place, still in 12th place, are the London Broncos. Unfortunately, still well off the mark. There isn't too much that can be said about them at the moment, aside from, look, they will continue to learn week in, week out. Some teams will also develop. Some of the better teams, I think, will learn to adapt as their own unit as the season goes on, and it will be harder for the Broncos to predict what teams are going to do, because the better teams with more resources, with higher quality players, will be able to adapt better and improve over time. So I think London are still fighters. I love the grit and determination that they're still fighting with and not giving up, not quitting. But yeah, London still in 12th. On to 11th. Still in 11th place, Hull FC. Decent fight against a Huddersfield team that can be tricky. But yeah, still a little bit off there. And I'll sort of talk about them and the gap to 10th place in a moment. But yeah, the one thing that I'm still liking about them, overall, like the quality that they're producing still isn't great. But one thing I like about Hull FC at the moment is just there's at least a different feel around the team, and there's a different level of energy that I have recognised. And with Jake Truman coming back in, that's always going to be helpful. I think he's a real top player. And with the right support around him, he can really thrive. But yeah, Hull FC still in 11th. On to 10th place now is Castleford, still in 10th. So one thing I was going to mention was I think the gap after this round has closed slightly. It's still quite a significant gap between Hull FC and Castleford. But I think, given that Hull FC put in a decent challenge against Huddersfield, Castleford were way off against a Leeds team that I've criticised for the last couple of weeks. Yeah, the gap has certainly shortened. It's not close by any means, but yeah, there is a much shorter gap there. I was thinking that Castleford could really put something up in attack, like defensively. I know that they are, they're well off. No thanks. I know that they're well off the mark. So professional. But I know that they're well off the mark, but in attack, I thought they'd at least be able to offer something. But yeah, defensively, Castleford really needs some work, but they can turn things around. I still think there's at least a glimmer of hope, only halfway through the season, that they can push for playoffs towards the back end. On to 9th place. Still in 9th place, I have the Leeds Rhinos. Much better performance than I was expecting. Great domination. This is something that, you know, at this part of the season now, I'm starting to trust them a little bit more than I am Huddersfield, just based on results over the last couple of weeks. But I can't quite drop Huddersfield down yet, only because they won. You know, in terms of difference of performance, you know, this is 1 week really, and based on the whole season so far in the last couple of weeks, Huddersfield have just done enough to stay above Leeds for me. But, you know, by next week, the week after, well, it wouldn't be next week, but the week after that, Leeds could move above Huddersfield in this list. But Leeds, decent in attack and very strong in defence to leave, you know, keep anyone to 4 points is great. So, on to 8th place, Huddersfield still in 8th place as well. I don't know what's happening with them. I don't know. I feel like a broken record saying the exact same thing. You guys, say it with me. We don't know what Huddersfield team we're going to get week to week. Really don't have a clue. And to keep it that close against Hull FC, as much as I praise Hull's energy, I just don't think the game should be that close. Regardless, it shouldn't be that close. Huddersfield, with the individuals that they've got in that squad, shouldn't be struggling against teams like Hull FC. They really shouldn't. But as I said, it's very likely that they could move down. by the next Power Rankings video in 2 weeks' time. It might be 3 weeks' time, actually, I'm not too sure. But 7th place, Salford. There's a little bit of consistency with Salford. Still not a perfect team, but they get in there. They get in there. They won the game against London in a way that I expected them to. You know, that was the kind of result I fully expected from them, and they got it done. Held them to very minimal points and put up a good chunk of points themselves. Still a few things to work on. Defensively against the stronger teams, I want to make sure that they can compete with those guys. And if we can see a few more tricky games like they put up early on, say against Leeds, when we thought Leeds were, you know, to be taken a bit more seriously, like they did against Warrington, like they did against Wigan, say Helens, a few more of those kinds of games, and we can start moving them up the ladder a little bit more. But Salford are a solid team, but just perfect a few things, and, you know, they'll be right up there. On to 6th place, Leigh. Losing 12-0 is not the worst thing in the world. It's a 12-point gap, but there's two ways of looking at it. One, they score 0 points, which is not a good look. But two, on the flip side, only hold Hull KR to 12 is also really solid on the defensive aspect. I thought it was going to be tries galore. I think it was 30-22, I think I predicted for this game, in favour of Hull KR. But to restrict Hull KR to only 12 points, I think, look, it's not great scoring 0, but they're not the first team to do it this season. They probably won't be the last. They're still a decent team overall. And when you're taking on a team like Hull KR that just loves to throw the ball around, are really tricky on all, in all departments, I can forgive them for only losing by 12, it being such a low scoring game. So I will praise more the defensive aspect than the attacking aspect. And we know that Leigh can score points. We know that they can. We've seen it, and with the squad that they've got, they'll be all right. But yeah, Leigh still in 6th. Still in 5th place, Catalans Dragons. Not a terrible loss score-wise to St Helens, especially a Saints team that's doing a lot better recently. Catalans still solid defensively. Some lapses here and there, and in attack can still be pretty one-dimensional, which is unfortunate given how they were last season. And they're still learning. I hate to say it because it's halfway through the season, but they're still learning. There's things that they'll have to learn, and I don't know if they know what their best lineup is, especially in the spine. And sometimes they don't have a choice at picking what they think might be their best spine because players get injured so regularly. So I just think it's a case of Catalans most weeks will beat everyone below them on this list. Obviously, of course, Leigh beat them, or battered them, I should say. And so did Huddersfield, actually. But Catalans should typically beat everyone below them on this list, and will be okay sometimes against the teams above them. But yeah, I think I've said this before, I think I said it in the last video, that they are the most inconsistent of the top 5 teams. I think they are most at risk of being dislodged in the top 5 by Leigh or potentially Salford, seeing how they get on over the next couple of weeks. Catalans, I think there is genuine risk of them not being in a playoff spot. I don't think it's anything to worry about right now, but I think if this continues, not knowing really where they're at, what kind of identity they have, then I think there is a genuine possibility that playoffs might be out of the question, especially some of the teams on the edges like Leeds, Huddersfield, Salford and Leigh all get things right towards the back end. But that's the Catalans in 5th. In 4th place, still in 4th place, Hull Kingston Rovers. As always, I must praise anybody that holds a team to 0. Typically this season we've seen it only really against Hull FC and London. So to hold Leigh, a really strong attacking team, to 0 is incredible. Now 12 points isn't great, but if all you need is 12 points because your defence is so good, who really cares? I think the performance last week against London, as much as people might say, oh, it's only London, that kind of thing, it's very easy for people to say that, but I think the type of performance, the way that they executed, needs to be taken into account this week as well, and just being such a solid team against Leigh. And this is actually something that I'm quite happy about for them, because the way I was looking at this Hull KR team is, look, they'll outscore a lot of teams, So defensively, they need a little bit of work, but they'll have to just outscore teams. Whereas in this case, it didn't really matter too much. A penalty kick would have done it. And one thing I just want to see more of for Hull KR going forwards is just that defensive resilience. They are a resilient team all across the park, but it's just being able to shut teams down is the most important thing for me for Hull KR going forwards. But Hull KR still in 4th. 3rd place, and still in 3rd place, I have the Warrington Wolves. I will say for Warrington and Wigan, I think based on the teams that they put out, they're too much of a radical team change for both teams for me to really consider dropping them down. But I think performance-wise, for Warrington, it was solid in parts. So as much as people might think, well, don't be too harsh because there was a bunch of kids playing. I understand that. I just think regardless of whether you are a first team player, a reserve player, an academy player, that number of errors, it just can't happen regardless. I think if you're catching the ball, receiving the ball in the reserve grade, just because like that you're suddenly transported into a Super League game, it doesn't give you the right to drop the ball, if that makes sense. You should still catch the ball, which they did plenty of times, but it's like came loose a lot. And that's probably technique on Wigan's part, knowing how to kind of manipulate reserve level players that aren't used to the best ways to carry the ball, best ways to turn in the tackle, all that good stuff. It's probably a lot more specifics than I know. But yeah, too many errors on that side. It seemed very easy for Wigan to just throw basic shapes, go through the motions. So Wigan weren't great, but they didn't need to be great. It's very easy to get meters through the middle, and there was a couple times where we spread the ball when we had it, but all Wigan needed to do was complete a set. They'd make good meters anyway, kick to the corners, we'd struggle to get out our end, and then they'd be in even better field position when they received the ball again, because our kicking game was way off a lot of the time. And then right in front of our try line, our lads just looked quite small in comparison, really. And it was easy for them to get numbers on the edges. And some of the decision making, I think, from like Connor Wrench and Roderick Tye at times were a bit off. So yeah, we were at times very easily beaten. I think from the point Wigan scored their first try, we were easily beaten for the next 40 minutes, 30 minutes, something like that. It just seemed very difficult to really get back into that game. Second half, we made it complicated again. And all we had to do was complete sets. That's all we had to do. Finish sets, don't give away penalties when we're on defence, and just don't drop the ball when we have it. And we did it too often. And all we had to do was complete, and when we did, Wigan made too many mistakes, which put us in the strike zone. And Drinkwater's short range kicking game was great. But yeah, I said on my TikTok post-match reaction video that I'd pretty much accepted a loss for this game. Like, I'd accepted it. I just wanted to see a gritty performance. But when we went 12-0 up, when I saw that, do you know what, Wigan are actually there for the taking, I was then disappointed by the fact that we lost. Because it was such a winnable game. We had the chance to win that, and it wasn't necessarily for me about throwing the ball around, because I knew that with so many different combinations in there, it'd be difficult, but just the basics. We got so many of the basics wrong. That's what disappointed me the most, because it was there for the taking. There was 2 points on offer, but I rambled on too much, and that's Warrington in 3rd. In 2nd place, still in 2nd place, St Helens. I think they're looking really strong at the moment. I could have put them first, possibly, but again, because there are too many outliers with Wigan, yeah, I think the gap now to Wigan is very, very small, and in a few weeks' time could easily overtake them back into 1st place. But yeah, the attacking side of Saints looked very stale a few weeks or months ago, and now they're really firing, they're really connecting, and they're holding teams to very limited points, and that's you know, a scary Saints team when you know you're going to struggle to stop them, and that they can easily just restrict the amount of points that you put up. They're a very scary opponent to play against. They seem to be linking up well. They seem to know what they want to do. I think they've got a few key players back in there, like Passy, for example. He's back into the team. Dodd, I think Dodd was out for a little while, but since come back in. So they've pretty much got their first team available for the most part. And, you know, they're learning. Maybe they're doing some different things in training because they had to adapt. People sort of understood what they were trying to do. In attack, they were very one-dimensional. And defensively, they could be opened up very easily on the edges. But when Saints, they get the basics right. They play very simple rugby, but very, very fast rugby. So when they're doing that good stuff and they're scrambling for each other, working hard, they're so difficult to break down. And they're turning into that kind of St Helens that we recognise from a few years ago. So Saints still in second. And to finish this out in first place, still in first place, Wigan Warriors. Again, bit of an outlier for the game against Warrington. They had a few key players out. Field was the main one. Performance-wise, it wasn't great from Wigan. It really wasn't. But they didn't need to hit a different level. Whenever they just needed a decent kick, Harry Smith provided it. There was the 40-20 from inside his own 20, I think it was, or inside his own 30. The 40-20, his kicks into touch to really, you know, to reset everything, to pin us back. Yeah, Wigan didn't get out of first gear and they didn't really need to. There were some moments where, you know, there's too many penalties, too many 6-agains. A lot of them were very unfair, I must admit. But, yeah, they still, for me, looked in control. Whenever they got the basics right, they didn't mess up with unforced errors. They were in firm control. So, yeah, for me, Warrington and Wigan, too much of an outlier in that game to really make changes, because I think the game next week will be more of the Super League representation with the first teams out. So I might have to use that more of the replacement for this week, I suppose. But yeah, that is my list of power rankings. Sorry that this video is so unprofessional compared to the normal ones, with housekeeping knocking on the door as well. But yeah, the list for the power rankings for me, going from 12th to 1st, is London Broncos, Hull FC, Castleford Tigers, Leeds Rhinos, Huddersfield Giants, Salford Red Devils, Leigh Leopards, Catalans Dragons, Hull Kingston Rovers, Warrington Wolves, St Helens, and in first place, Wigan Warriors. But that's going to be it. If you have your own power rankings, do let me know in the comments down below. Any thoughts on the games from last week, also let me know. But yeah, that is going to be it. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.